The Dodgers are getting healthy. Kiké Hernandez remains a possibility. And the Dodgers are not worried about ruining baseball. Let's talk about it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. This is a daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us where you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. And you can make that easier on yourself by subscribing to get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. If this is your first time listening, watching, welcome. I'm Vince Samperio, usually joined by co-host Jeff Snyder, but just me today. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for over a decade now in a few different ways. We've been doing this here podcast going into year 7. And we've watched a lot of Dodgers, talked a lot of Dodgers, and we both had a Dodger-involved weekend that was cool. The Dodgers had Dodger Fest on Saturday, and then Chris Taylor had his Polar Plunge charity event on Sunday. I was at Dodger Fest for my day job and was able to be there in the media scrum and hear a lot from the different players that came to speak. Jeff was at the Polar Plunge event. I'm sure he'll talk about that when he's back. But we got a lot of updates from Dodger Fest. Nothing too spicy of any quotes, but there was some, the Dodgers were obviously asked a lot about the narrative that they're ruining baseball, and they had things to say about that. We'll get into that a little bit later. Kiké Hernandez's name continues to come up. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But we're just going to start with all the updates we got in terms of injuries and timelines and anything else when it comes to, guys that are going to play for the Dodgers this year. And I think Shohei Ohtani will start off there. He was at Dodger Fest. He did speak on the stage. He did speak to the media. And the update we got from him was maybe not really an update. Dave Roberts did say that, May still sounds good for when Ohtani should be back on the mound. Shohei Ohtani didn't commit necessarily to that month, but he just kind of said that, he's not sure at the moment when he's going to be able to pitch. He said he's on schedule in his rehab, and with the short off season and with the surgery on his shoulder and everything else, not entirely sure when he's going to be able to pick up that ball and throw. But in terms of offensively, with recovering from shoulder surgery, Shohei Ohtani is on track to be ready for the Japan series and should be good to go throughout the spring. In terms of hitting, again, pitching-wise, might be a little bit of a different thing in terms of when he's going to pitch, but we'll just have to wait and see on that end. But obviously, hearing that he's going to be fine on the hitting end is great. I know that there is a lot of excitement to see Ohtani back on the mound, but let's not forget what he did last year and how exciting that was, and how that, realistically, that is maybe a bigger part of Ohtani on the Dodgers is offensively, with just how solid the pitching is. I mean, you have Yamamoto, Glasnow, and Snell already as your top 3. You add Roki Sasaki, you add all the other guys, the young guys they have, Clayton Kershaw at some point, and hopefully Ohtani at some point. It's an embarrassment of riches in the starting rotation. Ohtani is, maybe a little bit more important on the offensive side, and he should be ready to go there. The probably, I guess, biggest news per se we got is that Freddie Freeman did have surgery this offseason on his ankle, and that he has barely started swinging the bat again. He said that, he went into the offseason assuming his ankle was just going to kind of clear up and be good on its own, with rest and recovery after going through all of that in October. And then it didn't quite feel that way. So he spoke to the team doctor, and they ended up going in and cleaning up some loose bodies in his ankle. And they did check on his ligaments and tendons, and everything was good there. So he didn't have to worry about that. So it's not that long of a recovery. He did go 8 weeks without hitting, which they asked, how he felt about that. And he said it was a little bit not too weird because he usually takes some time off in the off season, but that, he was itching to get back to swinging, and that he continues to swing every day. He will be cleared to run this coming week, I believe is what he said. And he might not start spring training or the game. Once they get to games, he might not be playing right away, but that he still believes he'll be on track to be ready for the season opener in Tokyo. So, obviously there's always concern when there's surgery, but it seems it was more of a cleanup than anything else. And, Freddie said he should be starting his running program here soon, and then, start playing in those Cactus Leagues games. I would imagine maybe a week or two into once they get going. And, for position players, spring training is more just about timing and getting back into and everything else. It's not necessarily you don't need to build up per se. Especially a guy like Freddie Freeman, who's a veteran. He knows his swing. He knows, what he's feeling, what he needs, and everything that comes with that. So I'm not concerned about Freddie at all. But as we've talked a lot about this offseason, like the Dodgers are more concerned with later in the season in October than early in the season. If Freddie, let's just say the running program doesn't quite go how they need it to go, and he does miss the Tokyo series, or he does miss, a week or two into the season, not the biggest deal as long as it's not a lingering issue. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing with, Freddie mentioned his age, being up there a little bit, turning 35 or being 35 this season. And you do get concerned in that sense of recovering from injuries. But with Freddie Freeman, he's a guy that is going to work hard. He's going to do whatever it takes to be healthy. And even if he's not maybe 100% healthy, he's going to fight through that pain, as we saw throughout the month of October, and especially in that World Series. So, good note on Freddie that he should be good to go in Tokyo. But it, as with anything, we'll just continue to monitor that situation. There are a lot of pitchers that are recovering from injury, but I want to talk a little bit about Tony Gonsolin specifically. He is one guy that is expected to be ready when the season starts. And he talked a little bit about that process. And, he said rehab is going well. Well, I guess it's not really rehab anymore. He said this offseason was more normal to him, the way he finished the season last year, and, was probably an injury or two away from being on one of the postseason rosters if that had happened. And this offseason, he was able to focus on improving and doing what he normally would do in terms of building up arm strength and everything else, rather than solely focusing on rehab. Tony Gonsolin is an interesting one, and probably somebody we should do a little bit, deeper conversation about as we get closer to the season, or maybe once we start seeing him throw in Arizona, because there are a wide variety, or there's a wide ranging way that Tony Gonsolin season could go. He could slot himself into the rotation and, be a guy that has been one of the better starting pitchers when healthy over his career. I mean, you look at his debut, since he debuted in 2019, starting pitchers in general with a minimum of 300 innings, his 3.13 ERA is, I think there's only 13 guys ahead of him. And obviously he was an all-star selection in 2022 and he had that great year. So when he's healthy, he's pitched well, and hopefully that's something the Dodgers can get out of him. And, it seems like he's all healthy and on track and everything's good to go. And I'm excited to see what he can do, because as much as we talk about, the embarrassment of riches and everything at the top of the Dodgers rotation, and yeah, once everyone's healthy, eventually that rotation is pretty lethal on paper. there's still a early part of the season and some question marks that you're going to have to answer. And, Glasnow, Yamamoto, Snell, those are your top three. And, of those, they all missed time last year with injury at some point. Snell earlier in the year, maybe a little bit because of coming into to camp late or signing late. Yamamoto got hurt, but, came back strong at the end of the season. And then Glasnow got hurt at the end of the season and, wasn't around for the postseason. Then you have Roki Sasaki, who, is going to probably go through some growing pains. And, it's not a guarantee that he's going to come in and dominate. And then you have, Ohtani and Kershaw coming back at some point. Obviously, Kershaw not officially signed, but, the Dodgers continue to check in on him. They know, Brandon Gomes mentioned that he's throwing, and they continue to check in on him. So would seem it's just a formality of probably a week from now where they can start putting guys on the 60-day IL. And then you have guys like Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin and Landon Knack and Ben Kasperius and, guys you're not sure, Nick Frost, guys you're not sure entirely what you're going to get out of them. They're either recovering from injury or just being on that bubble, on that roster bubble. And, I'm excited to see what Tony Gonsolin can do because when he's right, he's pitched very well and would just obviously add to everything the Dodgers have going for them. So we're going to talk a little bit more about a couple other updates, and then we'll talk about Kiké Hernandez because, why not talk about Kiké Hernandez? And then we'll talk about the Dodgers and why they're not worried about ruining baseball. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to final whistle. And if you are someone that, maybe you're grilling on Super Bowl Sunday and you forget to put your bet in, don't worry about it because there's live bets to keep you going and keep you engaged throughout the game, no matter what's going on the field. The app is super easy to navigate and get your live bets in. And remember, a $5 bet can potentially get you $200 in bonus bets, which is just icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us where we get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. All right. We got updates from Emmett Sheehan, who says he's been throwing off a mound for, I think, 3 weeks now. Or 3 times. Either way, he's been throwing off a mound. The plan is, as everything stands at the moment, is to maybe start getting some rehab games in May or June, and that would obviously put him on tap to maybe make his return in July. Now, obviously, this is if everything goes well, and he said everything's going well as of now. So we shall see. That would just be another arm to give the Dodgers either some flexibility in the second half of the season or, replace somebody if somebody else is injured or just give them, some depth. And maybe he starts out in OKC and finds his way to the Dodgers if they need him. So we'll see what happens there. Tyler Glasnow, I know we've heard a little bit about him over the offseason. He confirmed that he is good to go. And, one of those – the cliche answers when you're going into spring training or at spring training is, I'm in the best shape of my life. And, Glasnow maybe gave us a little bit of that, saying I feel as good as I've ever felt. And that hopefully that, is not just a cliche. Hopefully that's true, but definitely was great to hear that, the MRI and everything that he had last offseason was just tendonitis, and that he rested, he's recovered, and he's heading into the season ready to go. He was asked about any adjustments or anything he's worked on to maybe help with not getting injured or keeping the arm healthy and fresh. And he said there's some slight tweaks that is you'll see once you see him pitch. He said maybe not stuff that is easiest to describe or talk about, but he did mention the way he finishes when he's on the mound, the way he finishes his windup or his throws. That's something that he's worked on, and that's something that obviously could help out if he's putting everything forward. That might be a lot better than if he holds back a little bit and puts a little bit extra strain on that arm. So Tyler Glasnow is, like you said, healthy, and I'm excited for that. I mean, I was excited last year when the Dodgers traded for him. I didn't want to label him as injury prone or anything like that. I have full faith in him, and he looked really good at the start of the season, and then he just couldn't quite finish it out, and obviously a big loss. Ultimately, when he went down, that seemed to be one of the turning points for the Dodgers on their World Series run. Dave Roberts called the team meeting and kind of talked to them and, reminded them that they were still a team that was able to make a run and win a championship. And, obviously they would have rather just had Tyler Glasnow instead of having to have that team meeting. But hopefully that's something they can have this year. And you don't have to worry about reminding the team just how good they are. So one name that was brought up is Kiké Hernandez. And, we've talked a lot about Kiké Hernandez this offseason. There's not much else to say in terms of, Jeff and I are on record as saying we want him back, and we don't know exactly how it's going to work out. And, maybe it becomes a competition of sorts, or they, try to figure things out or work things out. But Andrew Friedman was asked about it, and he said, the door on Kiké is never closed, and, left that possibility up for the Dodgers to make a move. There was a report, I believe, over the weekend that the Yankees were interested in Kiké Hernandez. It was also mentioned that they were interested in Yohan Moncada. So, they still need an infield, like a third baseman specifically, but someone that can play infield. Right now, I think they have DJ LeMahieu slotted in, or LeMahieu and Oswald Peraza and somebody else kind of fighting for a spot in the infield. So, they could use somebody like Kiké, but I'm just hoping the Dodgers get this done and bring Kiké back in and, figure it out or work it out or let people battle during spring, whatever it takes. But, bring Kiké back there. There's no seeming reason not to other than roster crunch right now. And roster crunch can be fixed in a few different ways that wouldn't compromise the entire roster. It would just, compromise one of those spots. So, yeah, there was a lot that went on at Dodger Fest. From a fan perspective, I didn't get to experience it that way. I know that there was, I saw some complaints about it. I don't know exactly how it was, but, if you had thoughts or anything on Dodger Fest, you can definitely share them in the comments and let us know what your experience was like. And I didn't share that personal experience, so I'm not entirely sure how it went. Before we talk about the Dodgers and how they're ruining baseball, there was a little bit of news, not specifically Dodger related, but Dodger adjacent. Jack Flaherty is going back to the Tigers. He signed or agreed to a 2-year, $35 million deal with an opt-out after the first year. He's getting $25 million in that first year, and then would get $10 million in year 2 if he doesn't opt out. That could be bumped up to $20 million in year 2 if he makes at least 15 starts next season. So if you had any thoughts of Jack Flaherty returning, he will be returning, and he will be there for the Dodgers ring ceremony, so that'll be fun, but it won't be as a member of the Dodgers. So at the very least, he'll be there when the Dodgers get the rings. It won't be something that he has to wait until his team visits later in the season. He'll be there when the Dodgers get their rings, and I'm sure he'll get his, and I'm sure he'll pitch against the Dodgers in that series. So we'll be reminded of Jack Flaherty very early in the season, but we wish Flaherty nothing but the best unless he's facing the Dodgers in the postseason, and hopefully he can have a strong year, parlay this year into an opt-out and a long-term deal next year. And who knows, I guess it could always be a return to the Dodgers in the cards at some point if there's injuries or anything like that happens. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's going to do it for this talk. We're going to talk about the Dodgers and what they had to say about expectations and the narratives and everything else that's going on this offseason. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, your last listen, any listen of the day. We appreciate those of you that are everydayers, and everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. That is a big commitment, to listen to a show 5 days a week. But we'd appreciate it if you could, lock in and give us 30 minutes of your day every weekday, and even faster if you put it on faster speed. So check us out wherever you get podcasts on YouTube. Tell your friends. There's a lot of Dodger hype, a lot of Dodger fans, a lot of Dodger excitement, and we would appreciate any support and help and, spreading the word by, via mouth, or that's a weird way to say that, but spreading the word, whether it's through social media, through word of mouth, or anything else you can help us out with. So remember, you can always go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can get text directly from us, and you can get an exclusive invite to our Discord server to talk Dodgers with other Dodger fans. All right. The Dodgers and the offseason, and you knew they were going to get asked about it. I don't know what people are expecting Dodger players or manager or whoever to say, but I guess you kind of have to ask about it. So the Dodgers were asked a lot in the media scrums about the narrative of them ruining baseball, or, there's, with all the moves that they've made this offseason, and, lack of moves or lack of spending for maybe some other teams. And honestly, we've talked about how we feel about it, which is, okay, sorry that your team is not spending to try and be the best. And, Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes and even some of the players, I'll reiterate, they're pouring back into the fans. The fans come. Freddie was very adamant about fans and, spending their hard-earned money, coming to support them. And, the Dodgers organization and the players are, there to help and reward them with, making moves and winning championships and, playing well and doing the right, playing the game on the field in order to bring joy to as many people as they can. And, this kind of went with another question they were asked a lot about. The Dodgers had their community tour, the We Love LA community tour, the week leading into Dodger Fest, where you saw a lot of different Dodger players at different events, whether it was with senior citizens, with kids, handing out gear, handing out food, whatever it was. The Dodgers were all over Los Angeles over the last week. And especially with the month of January that we had in Los Angeles, where a lot of people had uncertainty or lost their homes or lost their jobs or lost their, places of work or their restaurants, their businesses, whatever it was. And, obviously the Dodgers can't repay a lot of that. They are definitely making an effort. They've had individual players pledge money, monetary efforts. They've had, Mark Walter and the Dodgers pledge $100 million on top of, the money they made off the LA Strong shirts and everything else. And, I'm sure the Dodgers will continue to pour into the neighborhoods and the city and everything else. But for the Dodgers, you want to reward your fans, and you're making all this, revenue off the fans, and, you put that back into the team. And it's something that a lot of people realize as Dodger players, as Dodger management and everyone else. And, you kind of feel empowered by that. You don't really care about what other teams are doing or not doing, or what fan of other teams or media people or, whatever is saying. Who cares? You're playing for the Dodgers, you're part of the Dodgers, and why wouldn't you want to build the best team possible? And I think, that's Brandon Gomes and Andrew Friedman have talked a lot about it this offseason of, obviously one, supporting the fans, but also why wouldn't you want to build the best team possible? Why wouldn't you want to build a team that you hopefully don't have to give up assets for in the middle of the season because you could have just signed somebody for money before the season starts. And I think that's what, the Dodgers have built. Mookie Betts also, puts it pretty well. He's like, what do you want us to do? Like, the players, what do you want the players to do? The players are either one, already on the team, or two, deciding to join the team, which, why wouldn't you take a good amount of money and go play for the best organization in baseball currently, the reigning World Series champions currently, and a team that has made the postseason, probably some of those players, more than half their life, they've seen the Dodgers in the postseason. And that's not the player's fault to say, well, I took $5 million less, but I'm going to go play in Los Angeles with a team that's dedicated to winning and trying to win, rather than going to play for a team that, could trade me at the deadline if they're not performing well, or, who see me more of an asset than rather than, somebody that can help you win and contend and everything else. And, a lot of the players just kind of shot down the questions, or just, kind of mentioned like, it's not something that they have to worry about. They're worried about repeating as World Series champions. And, they were asked about that too, and expectations. And, it's kind of a weird question to be asked about expectations for this team when basically for the last, definitely for the last 5+ years, dating back all the way to when the string of postseason appearances started, like it's World Series or bust pretty much every year for the Dodgers. Obviously, 2019, 2017, I don't know heading into that year if it was World Series or bust, but, they had a great year. They had a great run in the postseason, and, obviously got screwed a little bit. But then they head into 2018 with, okay, now we broke through. We got to the World Series. Now we're trying to get back there. A little bit of a weird year that we got back to the World Series and, just ran into a better team. And honestly, we're a few outs away from being tied 2-2 with that team, and, knowing that anything can happen in the 3-game series. And then you go into 2019 and you're one of the best teams ever in terms of wins. And, then you lose to the Nationals. And then 2020, you win it all. And then 21, 22, 23, you have World Series aspirations and you don't make it back there. And then 24, you finally break through and you win it all in a kind of a weird way, in the sense of you were down a lot of players, especially pitchers. And, maybe people weren't expecting you to make that run. But the Dodgers, the run was pretty strong. Yeah, obviously you went 5 games with the Padres, but, the Mets was a 6-game series that should have been over before that if they, weren't trying to align their pitching. And then the Yankee series was a 5-game series. So for the Dodgers, there's no expectation difference here than, well, at least put on by themselves or put on by the organization, like, fans or, the media, whoever it is, could put maybe unfair expectations that if you don't win the World Series, your whole season doesn't matter. Obviously, if that happened, there probably would be not justifications, but there's things you could probably point out. If the Dodgers don't win the World Series, there's probably things you could say, like, there was injuries, ineffectiveness, guys just didn't perform up to par, whatever the case was, or you just, didn't get it done in October, which is still the hardest part about this whole thing. The Dodgers have solved the part of winning March through September. They've solved that part. They have that all figured out, and what they haven't had figured out yet is how to do that in October. And it's something that may not be solvable. It's something that combines a lot of things: luck, injury, all that type of stuff. There's luck, injuries, guys playing to their potential, or guys just playing to their standard. Obviously in years past when they lost, in recent years, especially 2023, like Mookie and Freddie combined for 1 hit. If they had just been their normal selves, hitting around 300, that series might have been flipped a little bit, or the Dodgers would at least have been in it or battled, 1 hit there, 1 hit here, And, those games weren't out of hand. Game 1 was out of hand in 2023, but the other 2 games weren't out of hand. They got a little bit out of hand to where the Dodgers were down early, but they had chances to come back. And I think now the Dodgers, okay, we've solved the regular season. We're trying to solve the postseason. And the way you can try to solve the postseason is to have the best team possible heading into that, or the best overall roster to make sure that your March through September doesn't ruin your chances of October in terms of, injuries and guys getting tired and all that type of stuff. And I think that's where they're at now, where it's like, okay, if our roster 1 through, 35 is legit MLB capable players, or even 1 through 40, if you can't, I don't know if the Dodgers can go, they can probably go 1 through 39 right now. Jack Dreyer, we don't know yet. Michael Grove can be an effective pitcher in the major leagues, and everyone else on that 40-man roster, has proven effective in the big leagues for the most part, maybe other than Hunter Fiducia. But again, he's a backup catcher at the moment at best, and, could find his way higher than that, maybe not with the Dodgers. So when it comes to, people in the the Dodger players don't care. They're trying to win. Nobody's going to take anything from them for winning a World Series. Nobody's going to take anything from them for the roster they have. And, us as fans, we're going to enjoy it. And the thing to me, the narrative of ruining baseball doesn't make as much sense, because you always need a villain. And, it might not always bear out in the ratings, but, what the Astros did suck as a Dodger fan, because, you probably would have won the World Series in 2017, or at least if you would have lost, it would have been on an even playing field. But that, once in 2020, once we found out that happened, that was a villain. You had someone to root against. Nobody wants to see the Astros win, and they did keep winning. They did win the World Series, legitimately, and they did continue to make the ALCS until last year. But you had someone to root against, and the Astros probably wasn't the best overall name to root against, because there may be not enough people to care. I'm rooting against Astros, but the Yankees in like the late 90s, when they were winning, they won 4 years in a row, or not 4 years, yeah, or when they won 4 championships in the late 90s, early 2000s, like, you were rooting against the Yankees. Your team might have been out, but you were watching the World Series to hope the Yankees lost. That's what everyone's going to be doing this year. You're going to tune into Dodger games to hope they lose. You're going to tune in October to hope to see the Dodgers lose if you're not a Dodger fan. And to me, that good for baseball, gives everyone else someone to strive for, and, puts, maybe put some more butts in seats in other stadiums. The Dodgers are obviously going to continue to sell very, very well, and, hit over 3 million fans as always, and, maybe approach 4 million fans. I don't know if that's technically possible, but I would imagine if they sold out every game, that'd be close to possible. But you want the villain. The Dodgers are the villain. They don't care about it. Us Dodger fans don't care about it. And, we're riding high after a World Series championship, and with, one of the best rosters ever constructed. And that's how we're going to roll with it. And that's how it's going to be. And, we're the Dodgers. We're Dodger fans. We're riding high right now. So there was a lot of other stuff that went down at FanFest. I was there. I am going to start uploading some videos to our YouTube of interviews with players. And I'm sure we'll have more stuff to talk about from Dodger Fest, and, Jeff's experience with Chris Taylor's event. And, there'll be more news and everything else that's coming. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, last listen of the day, any listen of the day. We appreciate you. Make sure to check us out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, even if you're someone that listens every day but you're not subscribed. A subscription helps out. If you're not an everyday or already day, try to up your listens at least one a week. We're only asking for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So we appreciate you getting out there. Remember, you can check out Locked On Sports Today, Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube. You can go beyond the podcast, come Locked On Dodgers Insider, and get text directly from us by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. You can email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can send us a voicemail or text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, or if you're at home, take your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers, Hey, remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.